Hey guys, let's do this. Welcome to our Dog Sports Live. Dog Sports Live. And I am Graham. You've got some breaking news while I fix my little fancy switcher here about some possible commitments that are going to be making announcements this week.
Yeah, so I think it's probably, a lot of people have seen rumors and speculation at this point. But I have on pretty good authority that we're going to get all within next week. You'll see commitments from, or an announcement basically that Eric Gilbert is enrolled at Georgia, and you will see a commitment to UGA from Terrion Kendrick come out on Twitter and social media. So it'll be interesting to see, because you'll kind of get a 2-for-1 there, and it honestly may affect some of these over/under win totals and some of the early spreads for some of these games. If Vegas feels like those are big additions, which I think they are, all of a sudden the secondary that looked really thin, you've got 2 returning starters at safety up the middle, and you've got Tyke Smith at star and Kendrick coming in as a YDB. With the way Kirby Smart's recruited, you would have to think there's somebody else on the roster that can play DB at a high level. So big news for Georgia. I think it's kind of funny just because we've had all these narratives this offseason around Kirby Smart being subpar or not doing a good job, and lots of coaching rankings that have sort of knocked him back down. But once again, I think you see the guy understands how the modern media cycle works, and he's able to keep his program in the forefront of a lot of people's minds and in the headlines pretty regularly. And we saw that last year with some of the quarterback transfers as well. But we've got Chris Marler with us from Saturday Down South, who is a good friend, and I think Josh and I both let's say pretty openly we really enjoy your content, even if you are an Alabama fan. So what do you think about the possibility of Eric Gilbert to UGA?
Well, first off, I want to say 2nd and 26 ain't no matter what Eric Gilbert's gonna do, Paul. No, I'm kidding. So I am still in the camp that one. Yes, good to see both of you. I'm so happy to be here. I'm very professional. I'm glad this is off to a good start.
You have no idea how unprofessional this is going right now, Chris.
No, so the Eric Gilbert stuff, for me, I'll believe it when I see it that he's enrolled. It sounds like I can see that little shit-eating grin on Graham's face right now, so I know that he is excited. So I feel like I trust Graham that something's happening here, right? But at the same time, I've still heard from people that are close to the program at LSU. Now, granted, this is a little bit dated. Like a couple weeks ago, they felt very confident they were going to get him back. I'm not sure what the end result will be. I know this kid's got a lot going on behind the scenes that we all probably don't know about. He's immensely talented, right? Would be a huge pickup for Kirby Smart. I don't know if he's going to be able to stop a wheel route, because y'all know y'all can't. No, but I really think if he gets him, people always say this about Bama is this embarrassment of riches, but my God, if you get Eric Gilbert on top of Washington, on top of all the receivers, even without Pickens, on top of that stable of running backs, and in my opinion, who should be the front runner for the way the season sets up at quarterback for your Heisman, that's an incredible offense. So we'll see.
100%. Yeah. I mean, it's a potential to be a transcendent level offense.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll see if, with Kirby with a transcendent, historically good offense can do better than the 8-4 that Dan Mullen did with his historically good, very transcendent offense.
Shots fired. Love it.
Shots fired. Yeah, that's what I'm here for. But no, I mean, I think what's interesting about Gilbert is, as you mentioned, you do have Darnell Washington in the program already. I kind of see Gilbert, though, as a guy they'd probably play at the X receiver spot. And I was watching some tape of him last night. He's a better route runner than I realized, and Monken really likes to run those little kind of quick game, clear out sort of routes and get guys underneath. And the fact he can do that at 6'5", 250 is pretty wild. But I think there's that aspect, and then also he's sort of would be the natural replacement to your jump ball receiver that George Pickens was. And I don't know you have that on the roster without Pickens. The rest of those guys are 6 foot, 6'1", maybe and under. So definitely would be, again, an embarrassment of riches, like you said.
So, and I'm not saying this to be a dick or to be
Sure.
controversial, but I'm genuinely asking as somebody that's like a Georgia fan, because we've seen Kirby struggle with this in the past. I fully think that like we've talked about this off air. Like I'm all in on Georgia getting to, playing for, winning a national championship this year. I've said it in the past and I've been wrong, but I just fully believe that that's what we're at with the way the program sets up and the way the rest of the SEC is set up this year as well. Does it worry you at all that like there's almost too, like, how do you share the touches? Because like we've seen Kirby's offense where that 2017 season, I'm not just bringing this up because I love the number, but they ran the ball 69% of plays that first season. Totally different offense, right? Like totally different setup. You don't have Chubb Michelle. I get that with a freshman quarterback, so it's totally different. I just like, does any part of you, whether it's like what's the word I'm looking for here? You guys know I'm terrible at words here. Josh, help me out. Get the thesaurus out. If it's like you being God, mother, it's you guys. We should have done this on Sunday.
Well, okay, so
PTSD or what?
Like being I cannot believe I've like mind effed myself in this whole thing.
No, well,
being superstitious. That's the word. Such a big word. Superstitious about like the way seasons have happened in the past or like letdowns. Does it worry you to keep everyone happy? Because it would almost be too much to try to figure out how to spread the ball around in that backfield. And now you're talking about even with Pickens out. Go ahead.
No, I mean, it's definitely a concern. I mean, I think like you got a guy in Todd Monken who was able to do that with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers with, Mike Evans and Chris Godwin and a lot of really talented players there. But I worry more about the running backs than I do the wide receivers, truthfully, just because like the nature of wide receivers, I think we see, with the exception of like a Devontae Smith kind of year that somebody can have, like generally you're going to have games where certain guys are taken away by the way certain teams scheme up on defense, and you're going to have games where, they're not. And so it's like, I just think the more studs that you have kind of going down the line, the more likely you are to have that major matchup issue with the third or fourth or fifth wide receiver.
Right.
Like that's how Florida beat Georgia last year, right? It wasn't, the first and second wide receivers burning Eric Stokes over and over. It was, running backs and second string tight ends and stuff like that coming out of the backfield. So
misdirection, play designs and stuff like that. And also having half your defense out.
Well, I'm not allowed to say that because I'm a Georgia fan, right? But no, I definitely think that there's a concern there. I also think that Daniels proved himself to be, pretty adept at spreading the ball around last year. Like Pickens definitely became that favorite target, but he threw Tremaine Burton to like a 270-yard game or something crazy like that in his first start. So I worry about it more in the backfield. I think a lot of people probably thought James Cook or Zamir White or both would leave after last season. You've got both those guys back, and Kendall Milton and Kenny McIntosh, you have two guys that are talented and want to be like feature backs. And so I think that's going to be the issue to figure it out. But if anything, the more this kind of passing game gets scary and powerful, the more that's going to open up that running game and just pull guys out of the box and make it very easy to get, 8 to 12 yards to carry out of the backfield. So it'll be interesting to watch, but like, I mean, not like on the year, but
every single play,
every single down.
Okay. Well, now that I've got my shit together, mostly emotionally and otherwise, I had all this thing. I sat here for an hour and laid it out. And then when I pressed a button to go live, literally it took a dump. So
nice.
It's perfect. So we've got something on the right side of the screen. You're going to see some over under win totals. Graham gets fired up for gambling. We know Uncle Chris likes to gamble. So we're going to just talk about some of these lines, these win totals that we're working with DraftKings numbers. And so you got those at home, and we'll make notes. And Graham and Marler have got some takes on these win totals. And Graham, kick us off. Who you have a lock? Do you have your favorite win total that you want to talk about?
My favorite win total is
Alabama.
I didn't pick Bama. I didn't look at Bama. Like I didn't choose one way or another. This isn't like that sexy, but my favorite win total actually is Louisiana under 9.5. I think that
there we go.
deep cuts, baby. That's what we're here for.
The peel behind the onion. Am I allowed to use that?
Do you guys have a massive Louisiana following for this Georgia
we don't. But the reason why, like, I say that is just because they were extremely lucky in 2020. They were plus 10 in turnover margin. They're like plus 7% in drive starting in plus territory. And they were 6-1 in games decided by a touchdown or less. And so I think, there's a lot of like preseason, like that. Them beating Texas, and I think week 2 is like a sexy preseason upset pick.
I'm laughing because I did all the stats and stuff, and I'm like, I got like 50 Power 5 conference schedules with returning metrics. And no, it's okay. It's okay. I know you said Louisiana. I'm like, oh shit. Well, anyway, but all right. So 9.5. They've got a tough schedule.
Under 9.5. Yeah.
Under 9.5. All right.
Under 9.5. Yeah, and it's just because like. The rest of these are Power 5 picks, but you asked me like what my favorite one was. And if any of you are stupid enough to follow my advice and use your own money, I want to like be honest and say that's the one I actually feel best about. But let's start back with like the cream of the crop. You've got Clemson, 11.5 win total. What do you think about that, Chris? Do you think they're going to go undefeated, run the table regular season?
I would just stay away from betting Clemson unless it's a national title game. I think the last time I bet on Clemson, I'll bet on them in the first half of games nonstop because the numbers are there to support that. Like last year was like, I think going into last year, there was a stat I brought up one time that going back to the start of the 2019 season, they had allowed a total of 10 points in the first half of games. Like that's in the first quarter of games. So like I'll bet on them in the first quarter and the first half because that conference is so weak. I wouldn't touch this either way just because I don't know what's going to happen in that Georgia game to start the year. I think Georgia's going to win, but if they don't, if they don't,
they're not losing to anybody else.
Right. It's the ACC, so it's like horseshit competition the entire time. If I was like if we're looking at like locks and stuff like that, like I love Bama under 11.5 as much as I hate to say it.
Why?
Because looking at like gambling is all about, in my opinion, trends, right? Like
sure.
Like the way that people lose money gambling on sports is by betting with like emotions and betting with their favorite teams, right? Like the whole reason we have spreads and all that kind of shit is because Vegas is like, all right, we need even action on both sides. I think Bama is very skewed with that because people just think like, oh, it's Bama. I don't know what I'm doing here with my hands, but like it's like this big, bad like wolf. It's gonna like no matter what, they're gonna get people betting on them. Like, oh, like you said the other day, Miami like bet on Miami to not cover the 17.5 spread against Bama game 1.
Right.
I think Miami can win that game.
Well, so let me just jump in because I'm the stat guy and I've got the graphs up here, not looking at Marler, but Bama's returning 77 of their defensive production. They were one of the top teams in the nation in 2020 with 2.8 net yards per play. Mm-hmm. They've got several defenses that were, returning a good portion of their defense, a lot of 70s and 80% returning on their defensive opponents, but a lot of those defenses were 47% success rate allowed, 45. So they're going to play a lot of bad defenses, and that's what you want when you got a young quarterback there. So,
but here's the thing: if you have a young quarterback that's basically a freshman, because I think he actually eligibility wise, he might still be a freshman the way last year went. Like if Bryce Young is an unknown commodity, who do they have behind him? Right, like everyone just kind of assumes, and it's
honestly, like Bear Bryant's like their grandson.
It's Bear Bryant's former dog sitter's godson, and I tell you what, that kid, White Bama Twitter is that they've had a hard on for him for a long time.
They are.
So Bryce Young, I think Bryce Young could be great. I just think that I've said this over and over and over again. You could look at it from two standpoints. Like the defense will be great, and as we all know, defenses are what wins championships, right? Nowadays, no, I'm being very sarcastic. So it's like. You
think that Miami game's for real? I mean, Miami is like one of the top teams in Bill Connolly's returning production, 91%.
Which blows my mind that Bama's a 17.5 point favorite. And that kind of quarterback,
I said I would take them at 13 points, not 17.
Okay. But De'Aaron King, if he's healthy and like if he's even 80, 90%, that's the kind of quarterback that gives like sometimes, Bama fits. But regardless of all that, you can look at it from one point or one standpoint of like who they lose. They lose generational talent at receiver. They lose a Heisman Trophy who put up the best receiving campaign in the history of college football, probably. Right. Definitely in the SEC. You lose a top 15 pick at quarterback in the NFL draft. We're talking about 4 or 5 years ago where Bama hadn't had a first-round pick since Joe Namath. And then you talk about having like Najee Harris, who had 30 touchdowns. Yeah. 30 touchdowns. And we don't even talk about his production because of Devontae Smith, right? On top of that, you lose Steve Sarkisian. Then you lose 3 offensive linemen. 2 of them, or one that was a first-rounder that shouldn't have been. And then Landon Dickerson, who was the glue of the whole team. So I just don't understand why we all think, one, how many times has Bama gone undefeated in the regular season in a 12-game schedule the past like 5 years? I think it's, or 10 years. It's like twice, right? 2016, 2018. They didn't win a national title either year. So if you're telling me you have a true fresh, or basically a we'll call him the redshirt freshman quarterback, you get very limited playing time. If something goes awry, not even injury-wise, but he just isn't it, when you have all these, and all the people they're replacing besides John Mechie, for the most part, are freshmen at receiver, right? So, like, I just don't see him winning 12 games.
And I used to say this, every other year about Bama, and I kept getting proved wrong, so I stopped saying it just because we've seen Saban replace and reload and all that. My question for you is, like, you're looking at Bama's schedule. Who's the loss? Who do you think is the most likely of that?
I don't think it's Florida. I don't think it's Florida. I just think that,
I don't think it's Miami.
It might not be Miami, but I'm just saying it's during a 12-game schedule, right? You have A&M at A&M. You got Ole Miss. Ole Miss is a week off where they play you. You have LSU with a week off where they play you. I don't think, on paper, I don't see them losing either of those games, but I'm just playing the odds here of which is what gambling should be, which is it's very difficult to go 12-0, right? It's very difficult to go 12-0 in general in the regular season. And we've seen time and time again, Bama not be able to do it. And if they have, there's always one game that they somehow escape, right?
All right. So
I just don't see it happening.
Their win total is 11.5.
Right.
Okay. So that means and it's paying even money on the over, right? So you've got to pay juice on the under. So a lot of, I guess that's tells you right there that Vegas kind of is leaning towards the under there, just like you're saying. But let's just assume they win the division. That's a 13th game. And even if they don't win, they've got a 14th.
These are all regular season.
These are regular season only.
Oh, so you don't get the SEC championship?
No. Oh, so if it was the whole season, I would take the over in a heartpit. Yeah. So anyway, but if we're talking locks, and I know that I just went on and on about Bama there, but like if we're talking locks, definitely Louisiana over 9.5 games. I think LSU over 8.5 with the production they have. I like that pick a lot. I just think that they've recruited well enough. I just think they've recruited well enough to have a lot more success. I think that Coach O is definitely trying to figure out a way to recreate 2019, and it's not going to ever happen. But at the same time, they've recruited so well. It's not just Derek Stingley; it's Eli Ricks. They have Mike Jones coming at linebacker.
They got McNee. They got McNee. They got Central Michigan. They got Louisiana Monroe. They got a soft schedule.
So they're going to get to 4 wins in their non-con alone.
Of course, they are. But it's like, I don't know. I feel like that Mississippi game for them is a coin flip.
Okay.
Right. I think they probably beat Mississippi State. They probably beat Auburn.
So that's 6. Do they beat Kentucky at Kentucky? Probably so.
Probably, yeah.
That's 7.
A&M.
Kentucky.
I don't know. A&M. A&M.
A&M in a revenge game as always. It seems
and I guess I don't know. My thing with LSU is I think that just getting Pelini out of there, you have to assume that defense automatically gets way better. And so I think you're probably right. But
they were dead last in the FBS in pass defense. They were 127th out of 127 COVID participating teams.
Right.
Yeah.
No, 100%.
They're returning a lot of at least those guys. So if there is a deficiency that great at defensive coordinator, then you've got guys that have been on the field and played in the SEC. So
they're going to beat Auburn. Value. They're going to beat Auburn at home, in my opinion. There's your 8th win. I think they could beat Ole Miss. But my biggest thing here too is, and I said this the other day on Twitter, and now I want everyone to be to understand this very clearly. I am strictly a Twitter account now. Okay. I only talk softball.
I know. So yeah, we're our ladies and your ladies are both in the World Series.
That's all that matters. I don't give a shit about football. So here's the thing. But the thing with LSU, I said this the other day. I understand on paper. I understand how bad they were. I get all that shit. But when you talk about the SEC, and I hate cliches, I like yellow starbursts, ISIS, cliches. 3 of my least favorite things. But the games are won in the trenches in the SEC, correct? That's what we always said. I get how bad they were. I think they only get better. And you're talking about an offensive line and a defensive line that combine with 5 possible positions, they return, with 9 possible positions, right? 4 on the D line, 5 on the offensive line. All 9 are returning, and 8 of the 9 are seniors. So I honestly don't give a shit how bad they were last year, with especially that defensive line, with how terrible it must have been to be under Bo Pelini, who made 0 adjustments the whole season. I just feel like they're going to be incredibly improved.
No, and I think there's no way they're not improved, especially because of Pelini. But like, this is where I struggle with the returning production numbers. Like sometimes guys are who they are. You know what I mean? Especially guys that have been starters for a couple of years, and we're looking at them. Maybe they're going to be a 3-year starter going into their senior year. It's just like, generally speaking, we don't see those guys take like huge leaps, and so I think returning production is a great like tool. Yeah. But I don't feel like sometimes like this is the reason why like I'm fading Louisiana, is because like everyone's hot on them bringing like 97% of their roster back. Right. And, Billy Napier and his staff, like they had chances to go get big jobs and they didn't because that group is still together. And I think everyone kind of looks at that. And it's like those guys aren't 4, 5, or even 3-star recruits in a lot of cases, where it's like they have all this athletic ability that's still untapped. They've
what about LSU?
Squeezed. No, I think LSU, there's definitely like a possibility there for sure.
They have the 5th most signed 5-stars in the past 5 years.
Totally. No, I mean, LSU has a top 5 to 8 roster in college football every season. So it's like, yeah, there's definitely the talent there. I mean, let's be honest. Like, if that offense continues to do what we've seen it do, that defense doesn't have to like improve all that much for some games to go their way. So, but I guess while we're talking about some of this returning production stuff and returning linemen, and that does kind of segue into Texas A&M, who I actually don't think is going to get over their 9.5 wins that Vegas has them set. My reasoning on this is just that team was basically like the running game was what allowed that team to go as far as they did last year. Kellen Mond wasn't relied upon that much, but they lose 4 starting O linemen that had combined for 100 career starts off of that team.
I can't hate what you just said, Les. I really I love you to death, and I respect your opinion. I gotta interrupt here because I hate the Kellen Mond slander so much, because he's a guy that ended up in like the top 10 in several categories in all-time SEC production. And I get it's because he was there for 3.5 years as a starter.
No, I'm not slandering Kellen Mond though. All I'm saying
they
is
weren't carried by the run game. Kellen Mond had 19 touchdowns and 3 interceptions.
Yeah.
You tell me a program in the SEC that wouldn't take that kind of production outside of Alabama.
All right. What's their win total is what? What do you got it, Graham?
It's 9.5.
They got Kent State, Colorado, New Mexico, and Arkansas.
All right, so here's my hot
They're going to go
take
5-0.
really
They're going to be 5-0 going into the Bama game.
No, they're not.
With a week off beforehand. Oh,
okay. So who's going to get it? So who's going to get
Colorado is clipping them in Boulder.
You live in Colorado.
Everyone hates me. No, it's not just because I live here. Actually, I just moved over the border into northern New Mexico. So take
the land of enchantment.
That's right, baby. No, I really do think that, that's another one that I do think Colorado will go over. They only have 4 wins on their Vegas total. Yeah, I mean, they started last year 4-0. It's an all-packed schedule. But no, I just think that A&M, I do think that Kellen Mond was very good, and that we are discounting having to replace him with a guy who's never played college football. And on top of that, they're not going to have that O-line that they did last year to lean on if he's struggling.
Fair.
And just say, go be big and get push up front and run the ball with Isaiah Spiller. So I don't think it looks good for them. And I think that the SEC West is as deep as it's been in a really long time. Probably since like Alabama started, on this kind of dynasty run. Like you have a legit.
When was that? 1963.
Yeah, I'm going to jump in here because I got to give a shout out to Parker Fleming. Follow him on Twitter at Stats of War. He writes for Football Outsiders. Yeah, he writes for TCU blog, and I think he's actually a professor there. But he's got a returning talent index which factors in. It's really stat heavy and how he does it, but it's recruiting, returning production, and weights to certain positions, and certainly. But he's got the most improved teams from this metric, and it's LSU is really the 2 standard deviations improved, and then he's got Georgia, Alabama, Ole Miss, and Texas A&M all in the positive returning. They're going to be better. So he's got a great article in there. Check it out. But yeah, so you're still taking under, even though this, the nerds like us say they're improved, and Ole Miss is the 4th most improved team from last year.
Hold on.
Yeah,
here's the thing, though.
I'm still taking under.
I'll take Graham's side on this a little bit here because that defense is going to be really good for A&M. They're going to be really, really good, and I think the schedule sets up pretty decent for them. I mean, it can't be anything that was close to 2019. I don't think they have Florida as a crossover this year, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and that defense, I think they returned like 20 of 22 on the 2 deep or something crazy. But when you talk about them being improved, like if you're just looking, like I get numbers, I totally understand math. I'm really good at it sometimes. But at the same time, if you're replacing 4 out of 5 on your offensive line, like Graham said, and that whole thing was you really could lean on Isaiah Spiller. You're talking about A-Chain coming back too. And you saying the word improved. How do you improve on a 10-win season in a shortened year, right? Like they went 10-1 and they went to the fucking Orange Bowl and beat a top 10 team. Like that's improvement seems like
improvement is basically a playoff berth or a national title at that point. They were the number 5 team in the country last year. So it's like, I also just think, the COVID cancellations kept them from having to play Ole Miss, who I think could have given them some legitimate troubles, or at least just made them sweat in one of those hellacious shootouts that they seem to play every other week last year. But it's just looking at them lining up, it's like you got LSU and Auburn and Ole Miss 3 of the last 4 weeks of the season.
Auburn's gonna suck.
Auburn's going to suck, but there will be time. Brian Harsin doesn't know how to coach offense. We can't really deny that.
Does Bo Nix know how to play it?
No, but TJ Finley might.
That's fair.
And by that point, he might be the starter.
Yeah.
I mean? So it's just dude, don't get me wrong. This is not a pro Bo Nix podcast, but
God damn, that's the only reason I came on here.
And honestly, the other thing that I think everyone, or not everyone, but some people are sleeping on a little bit when looking at some of these over/under win totals is I think Mizzou has a shot to be decent enough to
they were good last year,
surprise somebody and upset somebody. So
I'll give you a hot take with A&M real quick, and that is it's not with A&M, but it's with Kellen Mond. Kellen Mond will be your week 1 starter for the Vikings. That's my hot take. It probably won't happen, but I don't know enough
about the Vikings to tell you if that's.
Is this not a Bo Nix Vikings podcast?
Oh, okay, all right. So I got another one that you're gonna hate. I like Tennessee over 6 wins.
Okay. So you guys are out of the time you paid for me to be here. First off, it's 6:31. I'm kidding. I'm 1,000% gonna say, but I will start walking towards the exit on that one only because of this. Tennessee, I'm trying to process what you just said still, to be honest.
All right, let me give you my case. And then
you go ahead. You go ahead.
All right. Tennessee is ranked no better than 95th in the country in EPA per play in any of the past 4 seasons. Heupel took over Missouri in 2016.
Yeah.
And that offense was ranked 120th in 2015. He improved them to 55th. And then the next year he improved them to 16th. So it's I think he can turn them into at least a fair to middling offensive team. And Jared Garantano's not there anymore. And I think that they will score some points on some people. And just 6 wins isn't that much, man. They're gonna, they're out of conference. Pitt's maybe a toss-up game, but they're gonna beat South Carolina. They're gonna beat Bowling Green or whoever they have. I don't think it's that hard.
Okay.
I do think that, yeah. I know you're very bullish
Josh
on
Heupel,
South Carolina.
Well, if there's anything you guys know about me, it's that I love stock lingo. And so I am definitely I I'm a bear. Is that what they say in stock and gay culture? I don't know. Anyway, here's the thing. I think that you're right. Like that's a great stat you brought up. Do you know how many wins they had in 2016 when Josh Heupel took over?
Who?
Yeah.
4.
Do you know how many they had the following year? 7. And they did that.
Yeah, but like Tennessee still has like a top 20 roster. Like that roster. I mean, I know they lost a lot of guys to the transfer portal, but like that roster has been recruited pretty well.
No. So okay. So I don't have the numbers in front of me, Josh. He already called himself a nerd, so we'll continue to just dunk on him for that. Like he might be able to pull these up. I'm not sure what they currently are. But you talk about 2017, they had 7 wins, right? Those are numbers that Mizzou had. Those are numbers they had with Drew Lock, who was like a top 5 all-time passer in SEC history, and statistically speaking.
Sure.
Tennessee doesn't have that. Tennessee has over 30 players this offseason alone. 30 players into the transfer portal, and it's not just guys that are like yeah, sure, they've recruited okay. But when Eric Gray is being projected as the number 1, as the newcomer of the year in the Big 12, when Henry To'oTo'o is going to Alabama and he's potentially a first-round SEC guy and top, first-round talent linebacker.
Dude, I'm not cold. Like it's just 6. It's only 6 wins
in the SEC East. Who are they going to beat?
All right, they beat Bowling Green. That's 1. They beat Tennessee Tech. That's 2. I think they actually will probably clip Pittsburgh just because Pittsburgh does Pittsburgh things. So that's 3. You've got Vanderbilt. They're going to beat Vandy. That's 4. They'll beat South Alabama. That's 5. That means all you have to do is get over South Carolina or Kentucky to get to a push.
Okay.
And then, I think there's a decent chance that they could clip.
I don't think they end the season with enough scholarship players to even form a fucking team. I mean, you've lost 30 guys. Am I allowed to say the F word? I'm sorry, guys.
Yeah.
Okay, you've lost 30 guys in the transfer portal, and I'm being generous with rounding down here.
It's interesting there that the under on Tennessee's 6 is minus 139. So,
it's still. I will say in Graham's defense, because he does sound stupid, and we all know that, right? We all no, I'm kidding, but I will say in your defense, if you're talking about, you're the only person I've heard say this, and I'm not saying that you're crazy for it, but I'm saying when Vegas throws out a number that seems like it's oh, that's fucking obvious.
I don't think it's obvious.
No. I'm saying I'm defending you. I'm saying when Vegas throws out a number where the entire country is saying yeah, it's the under. It's the under. No one's going to be betting the over on Tennessee, right? Vegas probably knows what they're doing. It's the one thing my dad ever said that was smart was besides I'm leaving, which was, hey, they don't build these $1 billion hotels in the desert out of nothing, right? Vegas knows what they're doing.
I'm pretty sure someone else might have said it, just saying.
Yeah, it's fair too. I don't think he originally said it, but no, I just think that, Tennessee, you have such a huge uphill battle to climb. And I'll give you another hot take before I head out here because Bay's going to kill me. But Tennessee, it would do in the long run, and just hear me out here, it would probably do worse for Josh Heupel to win 6 games and be bowl eligible this year in year 1 than it would for him to win 5 games, have something to build off of in the season with 2 wins because they play South Alabama and Vanderbilt, go into the offseason on a trending up. If he wins 6 games, we're gonna hear the same shit we heard with Jeremy Pruitt in the 2 years ago.
That's how we know it's gonna happen, dude.
But see, I just don't think it happens year 1, man. I mean, maybe. that roster's there's absolutely no way that roster's a top 20 roster. There's just no way.
No, I mean, but last year it was I think the 14th best roster in the country. Don't get me wrong, they lost you're saying 30 guys. So who knows how the hell it's going to rank out this year? But it's
you said it. So I mean,
I think though that you have there's a value there in trying to get to 6 wins with a team that has recruited much better than they've performed at any point over the last 2 decades.
That's fair.
So I don't know. I think it's an interesting spot where you might be able to find some value. Before we let you go,
he got to trash Tennessee on his way out the door.
Well, before we let you go, all right, are we in agreement that Florida goes under 9 wins, or do you think that's a push or an over?
It could at best it's a push. That's the ceiling. I don't understand the love for Florida this year. I think that there's nowhere to go but up with that defense. I just have a hard I don't get it. I just don't get it. And I like Florida. Y'all's rivalry is so damn dumb, and I get so like every time, and you're guilty of this, Graham. Every time I say one thing about either Florida or Georgia for the next 24 fucking hours in my mentions on Twitter, it's just an argument that I didn't want to be a part of between Georgia and Florida fans saying 1980 and rent free. I don't get it, but I don't get why Florida fans are so confident going into the season because, and I think honestly, if I'm giving you like a serious reason as to why, it's because deep down they know what's about to happen, and I think that Florida is going to lose to Bama at home. They're going to lose to. I mean, Kirby's going to be pissed. Like, think about last time Kirby had a point to prove. Game. Yeah, like against them. Like, so I just have a really hard time thinking that Florida replacing Kyle Pitts. You tweeted about it today, and I've been saying it all offseason. Like you just don't replace the Kyle Trask story. I think Emory Jones is gonna honestly allow Dan Mullen to open up his entire playbook. Kyle Trask, I said it over and over. He runs like the guy from fucking Happy Gilmore. He's like, dude, that's Mr. Gilmore's ball. Like he's going to have the entire offensive playbook opened up under Emory Jones. But that being said, I don't think Jacob Copeland is Kadarius Toney. I don't even think Jacob Copeland is Trevon Grimes. I don't think that anybody's going to replace Pitts' value at tight end. And if DeMarcus Bowman isn't your starter, that would be kind of shocking as well. He's the most talented back that might not even be playing. I just have a hard time thinking that Dan Mullen is going to take this, not like ragtag group of guys, but clearly overmatched. If you're talking about 9 wins in this season, where you play Bama and Georgia in the regular season, so you got to win every other fucking game. There's no way. There's just no way.
They can lose one another and push, but yeah, exactly.
That's what I'm saying. The ceiling is. That's why the ceiling is 9. They play at LSU. Right. So there's your other loss, in my opinion. I have a hard time thinking that they're going to be able to go over that. And
they go to Missouri. They go to Missouri late in the year. I also, I have no idea what Florida State is going to be, but if Mackenzie Milton is still like, Mackenzie Milton from a few years ago, then maybe they get something rolling, and that's
he's playing on drone legs.
Yeah, I mean, like right now, you can get Georgia at -6.5 on DraftKings. For that game against Florida, and it's like I feel like that's a pretty good value, especially if you're going to get some potential transfer news next week.
I said this 2 years ago, and I said it 3 years ago. I think I said it with like who was it that got so mad about it? It was Danny Cannell, which I know a lot of people hate, but I love DK. He's a great guy. But I was on. You hate him?
Oh god,
dude, he's such a good dude. He's a really good dude. But like,
I've come around on him. I used to hate him.
You have to talk to him like off Twitter. He's a really good guy. And so, but he was telling me, he was like, hey, here's the bets. Like somebody released, like William Hill released like their biggest game bets, whatever. And Georgia was a 3.5 or 2.5 point favorite in 2018. And they were a 6.5 point favorite in 2019. And I was like, I always say all of my fiance's money because she's the breadwinner. So like, but get a fucking GoFundMe and circle the wagons and put all of it on Georgia, because you're talking about a revenge game for Georgia with an extra week off, where they're most likely going to be either. So think about this. And this is for real the last thing I'll say. They will either have a week off to prepare for a rival that beat them after squandering a 14-point lead and then talk shit about it all offseason, right? You'll either have a week off to beat them with an undefeated team going into it, trying to hold on to a perfect season, getting to the playoff, or with your backs against the wall with one loss, having to win out. So either way, bet the house on Kirby. Like, I mean, flat out. I just don't get it. So yeah.
No, and I also think that like we've seen
Marler's got to go. Me and you're we're gonna do this some more. Chris, thank you for joining us. Hopefully we'll do some more betting stuff or whatever you want to do. And make sure you're listening to College Football Uncensored. He and Tyler Hook do a great job. They're cranking out off-season content, which Graham and I know can be tricky. And of course, you're probably following at Vern Funquist already on Twitter. And
sorry in advance if you are.
I love you like a brother, Chris, and thank you for and say happy birthday to Bay for me.
I will. Love y'all too. And for real, listen, I would love to do this again when we have more time. And
we will.
We'll talk soon.
All right, we'll go.
Peace, guys.
Later, man.
All right, cool. Well, he went off the air and shit didn't hit the fan, so we can do this a little bit.
All right, so the last thing I wanted to say, before he leave or before we.
You got some more bets, right? You got some more bets.
Yeah, about the Florida topic in particular. Okay. You're going to really get mad at me when I say this, and probably people on Twitter are going to get super mad at me too. But since, like, you know, I already shouted out Tennessee, I'm just going to go ahead and push all of my chips to the center of the table because we know that Dan Mullen can just kind of take wins for granted. Florida has to play Tennessee the week after Alabama is going to beat the shit out of them, and they're going to get all up for that game and get disappointed. I don't know that Tennessee will have the juice to like pull that off, but I think that Tennessee will make that a close game and cover whatever that spread ends up being. I think that's when we're going to know that like Tennessee's not total dog shit, just like kind of dog shit. But yeah, I guess other bets I've got. I really like Oklahoma over 11 wins. So does Vegas. They're minus 139. I think that they have a defense for the first time, and I think more than anything, like the Big 12 is historically bad on offense. I would say though that like me liking Oklahoma over 11 is more indicative of the strength of the Big 12, the strength of their out of conference schedule. Then like I don't think that they're gonna. I still don't think they're in that spot where they're going to get over the hump and win a playoff game. I don't think that's going to be the year. This year is going to be the year, and I think that the reason why we've kind of gotten to a point where we are actually like valuing their defense and calling it legitimate is because they played last year in a Big 12 that was as bad offensively as it's ever been in any of our lifetimes, and they played a Florida team that was basically like down to the studs in that bowl game. So I do think like I still think that you're going to push it worse with that 11-win bet with Oklahoma, but I also don't think that like they're going to win a national title or anything like that. UNC over 10, basically all they're going to have to do to win that bet is split Miami and Notre Dame in back-to-back weeks. Pretty much everyone else on their schedule should be a walkover for them.
Well, you brought up two teams that you like a lot, Oklahoma and UNC, both returning high odds on Heisman candidates. They both had a net 1.8 yards per play, and they're returning 77% of the offensive production from last year was returning for North Carolina. I didn't catch it, but it's in the 70s for Oklahoma. So that tells you that they've got a loaded offense that's returning with a lot of firepower. So those are interesting things to look at. I know the returning metrics can, like you say, can be deceiving, but it's something. When you don't have anything, right. You don't have any tape. You can see that is a lot of. Georgia's returning 60. No, I don't know, like 92% before Pickens went out, but. That's a lot of returning and really good quarterbacks. I mean, that's what it takes. We've been talking about JT Daniels all offseason. Spencer Rattler and Sam Howell are really good quarterbacks.
No, they are. And I mean, I think the other thing too is just with UNC, like, yeah, they lost their running backs, but most of that line is back. And I also think that like you're going to see them. They just roll like the way they physically dominated Miami last year on the road. Now they get them at home. I think they win that game against Miami, and if they do, I think it's really hard for them not to go over that 10 wins on that bet. So that's really my logic there. The other one, a couple others that like I do feel strongly on. I'm under USC. I'm under 9 on USC. They were as lucky as any team in FBS last year. They had a 60-point swing in points off turnovers from the year before. They were 3-1 when trailing games in the fourth quarter, and more than a quarter of their drives started in plus territory, while only 4% of their opponents' drives did. So I just think, I don't think that Keaton Slovis is that good. We've watched him have 3 interception games on a pretty regular basis. I think that, if they're lucky, they may like lose enough games to get Clay Helton out of there, but not, totally like crater out as like a 4 or 5 win team. I mean, there's still plenty of talent on that roster to where like I don't see them going far south, but
They play some. They're playing some good defenses too.
Yeah, they are. And
you're touting Colorado who's on the schedule, and now we can see that they're off. Their return. They allowed a 35% success rate last year, and Colorado's returning 81% of their defense. So they're returning a lot of defensive players and that was a good unit.
Yeah.
Ooh, see stats.
I know some shit sometimes, man.
I never doubted you.
I'm just kidding. No, but yeah, I mean, I think that like there's, I think Oregon State is better and they return 94% of that offense. Notre Dame, I think, is still just a better team than USC. UCLA, I think it speaks volumes that they're like a 2-point underdog to LSU first week of the season right now. I think that should tell you a lot about how good they could be. And I think that offense is really good. And DTR is a good quarterback. And Arizona State, right? Like they blew that fourth quarter lead on the road against USC last year when they were up 14 with like 4.5 minutes left, something crazy. But I'm firm for Herm, man. I'm fully on the Herm Edwards bandwagon. So I just don't see USC hitting 9 wins. Last one that I'll give, and I'm sure revisit this in future episodes, but I like Penn State over 9 wins. They were minus 111 points off turnovers last year, Josh. Have you ever heard of such? I've never heard of such.
No.
And they lost 3 games where they outgained their opponents. 2 of those contests, they outgained the opponent by over 200 yards. Thank you to David Hale for pointing that out on Twitter. So I saw that a few days ago. I did make note of it. But I just think they were a bad luck team last year. They're still a team with a top 15 roster in college football. They play a schedule that really only has one juggernaut in it in Ohio State. And without knowing kind of what the commodity is at quarterback there yet, like I think Ohio State beats Penn State, but still, Penn State's probably got as good a shot at beating Ohio State as anybody. So, I like them over 9 wins, especially because, their big out-of-conference game is Auburn up there in Happy Valley. I think second or third week of the season, and it's just like I don't think Auburn will have it rolling yet. Penn State's already, I think, an early 7.5 point favorite in that game. So that's what I got, man.
Oh, so good to be talking football. I mean, it's
exciting, right?
I know we're just a day or 2 away from June, and we're still a little ways away from the real football season ramping up. But the diehards are there. They're getting in our mentions. They're getting in back on Twitter. I hope you guys are fired up as we are. We're gonna do some more stuff. So we actually have people reaching out and want to do some things. So we're gonna keep up the content. As always, I'm a little amateur at this, so a little rough start to the show, but we had tons of good content. I hope you enjoyed it. Make sure you follow Graham at Dog Out West. I am Josh at dog_stats. And I'm going to let Graham take us out, but I appreciate everybody tuning in, and I hope you guys are having a great Memorial Day weekend. And tomorrow is the day that we're going to eat and swim in the pools and stuff. But do remember those that gave all for the freedoms that we enjoy. And a shout out to our guys that are currently in the military, our men and women, and those that have served in the past. Graham, anything else you want to add before we get out of here?
I mean, thank you for all of the work that you do with stats and making us go out with our faces into the world on people's screens.
Sometimes they're real small, sometimes they're real big, but we get there.
We'll take it. We will take it. And then also, I'm sorry, go ahead.
And I was gonna say, I'll send out all this stuff because it's hard to do. It's fun to do, but I'll tweet this stuff out so you guys can look at this stuff at your leisure that we had scrolling.
Yeah, absolutely. And we can share some of that stuff on Dog Sports as well. But thank you for everything that you do. Thanks to Chris for joining. Also, thanks for bringing up Memorial Day tomorrow. And many thanks to all those who have served and sacrificed for all of us. I'll also enjoy your day off, but also enjoy watching Eric Gilbert and Darion Kendrick come to Georgia next week.
It's a trip, man. It's a trip.
Anytime you get to watch, like, it's hilarious to me, man. Like, we keep seeing people talk about Mullen over Kirby, and over this summer, like, we get to watch Kirby kind of like stuff Mullen in a locker on certain things. Like, dude, Dan Mullen just had the best tight end prospect we have ever seen in the history of football. The best tight end prospect we've ever seen, and he could not keep like the closest thing that we've seen to a Kyle Pitts as a recruit committed to his roster. It's just like, it is absolute banana land that dude cannot recruit better than he can.
We're gonna find somebody. We should. I don't know if anybody's a Florida fan out there or Florida blog.
Oh, they're all in my mentions.
Well, let's get somebody on, and if we get and just do a Saturday night no holds barred, like UFC style Kirby Mullen with Graham and whoever, except for that wheel.
If we can find one that can keep it between the ditches, so to speak, we will do that.
This is good stuff, man.
Man. I think it's going to be an interesting offseason and interesting preseason as the transfer portal thing goes on, just because you never know what's going to happen and how things are going to develop. But Georgia's going to get a lot better this week, and I think that you're sort of replacing a big loss in Pickens in Eric Gilbert, and you are really sort of shoring up that secondary to a point where it's not
unbelievable
anymore.
It's unbelievable. I'm gonna say you saw my hot takes on the text string last night. I'm gonna sit on a little bit, but I'm fired.
Don't jinx us.
No, exactly. All right, let's get out of here. Graham, have a nice night with your family out west. I'm gonna have a nice evening here, and I really appreciate it. We got some more stuff coming up. I'm excited. Thank you guys for joining us. Retweet us, follow us, subscribe to the YouTube channel. We were live on YouTube today, and we're gonna keep figuring out the technical stuff, but we're gonna keep putting out stuff. So stay tuned.
Nice.
All right, go Dawgs.
Go Dawgs.